has already been said, when those three levels of life, existence, mind that have been coined, the nitty-gritty, the airy-fairy, and the transcendental, combine like the water, the yeast and the flour makes dough, we find ourselves in that state that's called Satchitananda or Satori. And when we abide in that state, we're like an astronaut that's traveled into outer space. The laws of existence, as is known within this sphere, are no longer valid. So the mind and the body have to adapt to their new situation. So there's a story that allows a challenge for us, because the only way we come to know those laws is by experiencing them for us ourselves. So this is a story about a man who at a very, very early age was called into the Buddhist faith, and he became a monk. And he practiced all the precepts and mastered them over the many decades in which he was in that monastery situation. Not only that, not only did he become a very humble and knowledgeable monk, in the process of arriving at this place, he found himself although in a state of great humility, with a rather noble bearing, and having a deep and resonant voice. He had a somewhat charismatic presence, and when he intoned the sutras or expounded their interpretations, it was like a bell ringing. And this came to the notice of the emperor of the day. So he was called to the palace to teach the sutras and the ways of Buddhism, not only to all those who were in the palace situation, but very often when there were receptions, etc., that were held there. He was given a sumptuous chamber. There were servants to take care of him, and so forth. But then there was an occasion when the emperor called a great gathering of people. And at that time, at a certain moment, the emperor called the monk out to give a dissertation to all those who were there. So there was great reverence. There was a hush over the crowd. And our monk stood there in the satin robes that had been given to him. And as he stood there, about to begin his oration, he had a thought. Look at me. And in that moment, from far, far out in the cosmic spheres, a speck came down. And all of a sudden, the monk grabbed his hip as though he'd been bitten by some insect. And his hand went to his hip, and he felt heat, a searing heat in his hip. But he went ahead with his discourse, and it was received with the usual kind of reverence and adulation. But that night, when he went to his chamber and he looked, there where he'd felt this pain, there was a great red patch. And as the days progressed, this red patch became an open sore that began to weep, and an evil-smelling excretion come forth from it. And it spread. It spread to other parts of his body, so that after some while, to be in his presence was quite objectionable, because he exuded this terrible odor of seemingly rotting flesh. It became so bad that he had to leave the palace. He could not even go back to his monastery. His robes would become encrusted with this smelling excretion. So he became a wandering mendicant. But he could hardly go into the towns, because the smell from his body was so objectionable. People kept their distance from him. So he wandered the roads, becoming more and more sad, more and more of a being that was like a pariah to society. But then, one day, as he came to a pond and had the need to wash his robes and his body, after he entered the water and finished his ablution, when he stepped out of the pond, when he turned and looked, there was a clump, you could say, of that which had been washed from his body. This pus and filth that had emanated from him. And as he looked, a face appeared in that clump, an ugly, not demonic, but ugly looking face. And as he looked, that face spoke to him, and it said, "I've been waiting for this moment for lifetimes. Now it's my time to take revenge. I've waited and waited until there was an opening, and now it is my time to wreak revenge. Lifetimes ago, you were a general in the emperor's army, and you killed me cruelly with pleasure. And now it's time for me to wreak my revenge." The monk fell down on his knees, with tears rolling down his face. "Please, please, tell me, how can I expunge this karmic debt?" So the question that's posed to you right now, in this place called Satori, Satchitananda, what was the reply that this voice made to the old monk in answer to his question? How can I expiate my karmic debt to you? In this place, what is the meaning of karma? Cause and effect now? What answer did this voice give to the monk? In answering this question, we have the possibility of recognizing the law that is now operational when we live in a state of satori.
Well, just him, just the monk in that moment being, sorry, but at the, whatever it is, it wouldn't, then the face just, that would be it then. Because in that moment, all of his being is not just asking, it's more than just asking for forgiveness.
That's right.
It's a lot more.
There's a lot more. But it's a realization. Somewhat like the situation, and I've probably told many of you, in those years with Divine Mother, in sitting beside her in a state of meditation, because she did bring everyone to that state, it was seen that when she transmitted the light, smoke came out of the heads of all those who were gathered. And very often you could see it gathering like a cloud over the heads. Even sometimes like sticky tar, I would feel that I could take my hands and it would be like sticky. And I would often ask myself, what happens to it? Where does it go? What does she do with this karmic cloud? Because we know when the light goes in, the rubbish comes out. But it wasn't, it was our experience that gave the answer to that, isn't it? It's not something that we can rationalize with our mind. All of a sudden, we're aware of it. But in this situation, in asking this question, it forces the mind to confront our awareness and realization of what happens to karma. Otherwise, we're forever caught. People are coming to us, entering our aura, and it's like acid rain. It's penetrating. We're taking it on. And if we're in that situation, it becomes very real for us. Like trying to solve people's problems, blah, 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 isn't it so? So we need to understand what this law is, where we are in this. How does it work? So perhaps ponder on this question. Because when the question is there, we know some circumstance in life is going to arise where all of a sudden we, oh, yes, there it is, the answer, the realization, the awareness. So let's see what happens out of this question. What is the reply that voice responded in answer? How do I expiate? How do I repent? How do I expunge? How do I erase karma?
The sun always rises.
The sun always rises, yes. Yes.
Well, and so that's how it is.
Aha.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Indeed. So what is this place, like the astronaut, in which we find ourselves? Which are those laws that we were operating before, like the law of gravity for the astronaut, and the law of cause and effect for us when we were in that karmic field. What has happened to us? Absolutely. Out of duality. Out of duality. Opposites. How can there be any interaction of cause and effect in that place? It's not possible. But for us to realize that, the mind has to adapt. And we have to become conscious of the laws that are functioning in this place.
Become I.
Yes, you can.
I am.
Oh, I am. Yes,
Not
yes.
who am I.
Who am
I
I? Okay, okay. Yes. Yeah. So, little homework.